The stars looked peaceful from the observation deck of the carrier Resolute. Admiral Daniel Price stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the distant blue glow of Earth. It was a sight that never failed to move him. Even after 30 years in the Navy, that small blue dot was home to 12 billion people. His people behind him, the door slid open, and Commander Lisa Warren walked in. She carried a tablet in her hands, and her face told him everything he needed to know before she spoke a single word. "Another attack," she said quietly. The colony on Haven's Rest. Velhari warships hit the settlement at dawn local time. They destroyed the power plant, the water treatment facility, and the medical center. Daniel closed his eyes. Casualties. 3,000 confirmed dead. Another 2,000 missing. The colony only had 8,000 people to begin with. He turned to face her. Lisa had served under him for 15 years. He had never seen her look so tired, so beaten down. The war that wasn't officially a war had been going on for 5 years now. 5 years of incidents and territorial disputes and carefully worded diplomatic protests that accomplished nothing. "That makes 14,000 dead," Daniel said. 14,000 human beings killed by a species that thinks we're too weak to fight back. Lisa nodded. The Galactic Assembly has scheduled an emergency session. Secretary General Webb is preparing to address them. Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. Another speech. Another strongly worded condemnation. The Velhari must be terrified. He walked past her, heading toward the bridge. The corridors of the Resolute were busy, with crew members going about their duties. They saluted as he passed, and he returned each salute automatically. These men and women had signed up to defend humanity. Instead, they had spent years watching their people die while politicians talked, on Earth. In the gleaming towers of the United Nations headquarters, Secretary General Marcus Webb was preparing for the most important speech of his career. He stood before a mirror, adjusting his collar, studying the face that stared back at him. He was 63 years old. His hair had gone gray during his time in office. The stress of managing humanity's place in a hostile galaxy had aged him terribly. His assistant, a young man named Chris Palmer, entered the room. "Sir, the assembly is ready for you. Every major species is represented. The Velhari ambassador is already making jokes about what you might say." Marcus turned from the mirror. "Is he now?" He told the press that humans are good at talking, but not much else. He said we should stick to what we're best at, which is apparently writing letters nobody reads. For a moment, something flickered across Marcus Webb's face. It was gone so quickly that Chris almost missed it. But in that brief instant, the Secretary General had not looked like a tired old diplomat. He had looked like something much older and much more dangerous. "Let him make his jokes," Marcus said softly. "He won't be laughing for much longer." The Galactic Assembly Chamber was enormous. It had been built to accommodate representatives from over 300 alien species, each with their own requirements for atmosphere, gravity, and seating. Holographic translation systems hummed quietly, converting every spoken word into hundreds of different languages simultaneously. Marcus Webb walked to the central podium. Around him, alien faces watched with expressions ranging from boredom to contempt. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Concord for 93 years. And in all that time, they had never been taken seriously. They were the newcomers. The primitives who had stumbled into space and somehow managed not to destroy themselves. The Velhari ambassador, a massive reptilian creature named Krathvalum, lounged in his seat near the front. His scales were a deep green, and his yellow eyes gleamed with amusement as he watched the human approach the podium. "Distinguished representatives," Marcus began, his voice calm and measured. "I come before you today to discuss a matter of great importance. Over the past 5 years, the Velhari Dominion has attacked human territories on 17 separate occasions. They have blockaded 3 of our colony worlds. They have destroyed 2 of our mining stations. They have killed 14,000 of our citizens." A murmur ran through the assembly. Some species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others simply watched with detached curiosity. In response to these attacks, Marcus continued, "Humanity has filed formal protests with this assembly. We have imposed economic sanctions. We have requested mediation through proper diplomatic channels. We have done everything that civilized species are supposed to do when faced with aggression. Krathvalum let out a rumbling laugh that echoed through the chamber. Several other representatives joined him. The sound was mocking, dismissive. Marcus Webb did not react to the laughter. He simply waited until it died down, then continued speaking. I understand why some of you find this amusing. Humanity is a young species. We have only been part of the galactic community for less than a century. In that time, we have worked hard to prove ourselves worthy of membership in this assembly. We have followed your rules. We have respected your customs. We have shown courtesy to every species we have encountered, even those who showed us none in return. He paused, and his eyes found Krathvalum in the crowd. The Velhari Dominion has mistaken this courtesy for weakness. They have looked at our patience and seen cowardice. They have looked at our restraint and seen fear. They believe that humanity is incapable of fighting back. They believe that we will continue to write letters and file protests while they murder our people. The chamber had grown very quiet. Something in the Secretary General's tone had changed. The tiredness was gone from his voice. In its place was something cold and hard. I am here today to correct that misunderstanding. Krathvalum sat up straighter in his seat. His amusement was fading, replaced by uncertainty. For 93 years, humanity has shown this galaxy the face we wanted you to see. We have been diplomatic. We have been reasonable. We have been kind. We did this because we remembered our own history. We remembered what we were capable of, and we hoped we would never have to show you. Marcus Webb leaned forward, his hands gripping the edges of the podium. The Velhari have killed 14,000 human beings. Men, women, and children who did nothing wrong except live on worlds that the Dominion decided belonged to them. Every one of those deaths was a test. The Velhari wanted to see how far they could push us. They wanted to know if we would ever push back. He smiled then. It was not a friendly expression. Consider this our answer. He straightened up and addressed the full assembly one final time. Humanity is withdrawing from all diplomatic negotiations with the Velhari Dominion. We are recalling our ambassadors. We are mobilizing our fleets. And we are serving notice to every species in this galaxy. The courtesy we have shown you for the past century was a choice. It was a gift we gave freely because we hoped for peace. That gift has been rejected. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but the translation systems carried every word to every corner of the chamber. We are done being courteous. We are done being patient. We are done writing letters that no one reads. From this moment forward, humanity will show the galaxy what we truly are. And I promise you this, you will not like what you see. He turned and walked out of the chamber without another word. Behind him, 300 alien species sat in stunned silence. Trying to understand what had just happened, Krathvalum was no longer laughing. 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, there was a bunker that did not officially exist. It had been built 200 years ago, during a time when humanity still feared nuclear war with itself. Now, it served a different purpose. Now it held secrets that could change the fate of the galaxy. General Catherine Blake walked through the reinforced doors, her boots echoing on the concrete floor. Behind her came a group of 12 military commanders, each one handpicked for this meeting. They had been told nothing about why they were here. They only knew that the orders came directly from the Secretary General himself. The bunker's main chamber was vast and cold. Banks of computer systems lined the walls, their screens dark. In the center of the room stood a holographic display table, currently inactive. Catherine took her position at the head of the table and looked at the men and women who had followed her down here. What I am about to show you is classified at the highest possible level, she said. Until today, fewer than 50 people on Earth knew this information existed. By the end of this briefing, you will understand why. She pressed a button on the table, and the holographic display flickered to life. It showed images of alien battles collected from 100 different worlds over the past century. When humanity first made contact with the galactic community, we studied everything we could about how they waged war. We expected to find terrible weapons, devastating tactics, strategies that would make our own history look tame by comparison. Catherine paused. We were wrong. The images showed alien fleets exchanging fire at careful distances, ground troops meeting in designated combat zones, battles that looked more like sporting events than actual warfare. Commander Nathan Cole leaned forward, studying the display. He was a veteran of 30 years, a man who had spent his entire career preparing for wars that never came. They're pulling their punches, he said quietly. Those ships have clear shots at each other's engines, but they're deliberately missing. Exactly, Catherine said. Galactic warfare operates under a complex system of rules and traditions. Combat is ritualized. Both sides agree in advance on where battles will take place, what weapons can be used, and what targets are off limits. Civilian infrastructure is never attacked. Supply lines are considered sacred. Wars can last for decades because neither side is willing to do what it takes to actually win. She changed the display to show statistics. Casualty figures from alien conflicts spanning thousands of years. The bloodiest war in galactic history killed approximately 2 million beings over a period of 300 years. That was considered a catastrophe, a tragedy that species still talk about with horror. Major Patricia Dunn, who had been silent until now, spoke up. 2 million in 300 years? We lost more than that in a single day during some of our wars. Yes, Catherine said. We did. She changed the display again. This time, the images were from Earth, trenches filled with bodies, cities reduced to rubble, mushroom clouds rising over devastated landscapes. The commanders watched in silence as their own history played out before them. When the galactic community learned about human history, they were horrified. They couldn't understand how any species could do such things to itself. They assumed that we had grown past our violent nature, that contact with more civilized species had taught us better ways. Catherine's voice hardened. They were wrong. We didn't forget what we were. We simply chose to hide it. She pressed another button, and the display changed to show something none of the commanders had ever seen before. Schematics for weapon systems. Fleet deployments. Industrial facilities hidden on moons and asteroids throughout human space. For the past century, while we smiled and shook hands with our galactic neighbors, we have been preparing for this day. We've built weapons that the galaxy cannot imagine. We developed tactics that violate every rule of civilized warfare. We created an infrastructure for total war, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the moment when courtesy was no longer enough. Commander Nathan Cole stood up and walked closer to the display. His eyes moved across the schematics, taking in the scale of what he was seeing. Stealth carriers, he said softly. Drone swarms. Kinetic bombardment platforms. Bioweapons tailored to specific alien physiologies. Turned to face Catherine. We've been building all of this for 100 years. Since the day we made first contact, Catherine confirmed. The people who led humanity back then understood something important. They understood that the galaxy's rules only protected us as long as everyone followed them. And they understood that someday someone wouldn't. She pulled up a new image. It showed the Velhari Dominion, their territory marked in red across 40 star systems. The Velhari believe they are one of the great military powers of the galaxy. Their fleet is the third largest in known space. Their army numbers in the hundreds of millions. They have conquered a dozen species and absorbed their worlds into the Dominion. Catherine smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. They have never faced an enemy like us. Lieutenant Amy Porter, the youngest commander in the room, raised her hand. General, what exactly are we planning to do? Catherine turned to face her. We are going to show the Velhari what war really looks like. Not the polite, ritualized combat that the galaxy practices. Real war. Total war. The kind of war that our species perfected over thousands of years of killing each other. She walked around the table, looking each commander in the eye. There will be no honor duels. No agreed-upon battlefields. No protected targets. We will strike at their supply lines, their infrastructure, their ability to function as a civilization. We will use every weapon at our disposal, including weapons that the galaxy has outlawed because they cannot imagine anyone being cruel enough to use them. The room was silent. The commanders understood what they were being asked to do. They understood the line they were about to cross. "I won't pretend this will be easy," Catherine continued. "What we are about to do will horrify the galaxy. They will call us monsters. They will say we have proven everything they feared about humanity. But our people are dying. 14,000 dead, and the Velhari are laughing about it. They think we are weak. They think we are afraid." She returned to her position at the head of the table. "We are going to teach them otherwise. We are going to show them what happens when humanity stops being polite. And when we are finished, no species in this galaxy will ever mistake our courtesy for weakness again." Commander Nathan Cole was the first to speak. His voice was steady, resolved. "When do we begin?" Catherine Blake looked at the man who would lead the first wave of attacks. In his eyes, she saw the same cold determination that had carried humanity through 1,000 wars. Immediately, the Velhari border station Krath Savan was the first to fall. One moment, its sensors showed empty space in every direction. The next moment, the station was gone, reduced to expanding clouds of debris by weapons that had come from nowhere. There was no warning, no declaration of intent, no challenge issued according to galactic tradition. The humans simply appeared and began killing. Admiral Daniel Price stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the destruction unfold across dozens of screens. His fleet had dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly on top of the Velhari defense line, so close that the enemy ships had no time to raise shields or charge weapons. It was a violation of every rule of civilized warfare. It was also devastatingly effective. Enemy fleet status. He asked calmly. Commander Lisa Warren checked her displays. 12 Velhari warships destroyed. 4 disabled. 2 attempting to retreat. She paused. They're broadcasting distress signals. Calling for reinforcements. Let them call. Daniel turned to his communications officer. Are the other strike groups in position? Yes, sir. All 12 groups report ready. Waiting for your order. Daniel Price had spent his entire career preparing for a war he hoped would never come. He had studied galactic military tactics, looking for weaknesses. He had read the history of human conflicts, learning from the masters of destruction who came before him. He had trained his crews until they could execute complex maneuvers in their sleep. Now, all that preparation was about to be put to use. All groups commence attack. Target priorities as briefed. Show no mercy. Across 40 star systems, the Velhari Dominion learned what human warfare looked like. On the colony world of Volhar's Hope, Major Patricia Dunn led her battalion through streets that had been peaceful just hours before. The Velhari defenders were confused and disorganized. They had expected the humans to land in the designated combat zones outside the city, as galactic tradition demanded. Instead, the humans had dropped directly into the urban center, their soldiers appearing on rooftops and in alleyways without warning. Contact ahead. Sergeant Kevin Mills called out, his rifle already tracking targets. 6 hostiles, fortified position. Drone support, Patricia ordered. Clear them out. Swarm of small flying machines, each no bigger than a human fist, rushed forward from the battalion's position. The Velhari soldiers tried to shoot them down, but there were too many, moving too fast. Within seconds, the fortified position was silent. The Velhari had never seen weapons like these. Their military doctrine had no answer for machines that could think for themselves, that could coordinate attacks without human guidance, that felt no fear and showed no mercy. Patricia's battalion moved forward, stepping over the bodies of their enemies. Behind them, the city burned, in orbit above the Velhari homeworld. Admiral Daniel Price prepared for the final phase of the assault. His fleet had achieved complete space superiority in less than 6 hours. The Velhari's orbital defense platforms, once considered impregnable, had been destroyed so quickly that most of their crews never had time to reach their battle stations. We're receiving a transmission from the surface, Lisa Warren reported. It's the Velhari High Command. They're requesting a ceasefire. Daniel walked over to her station and looked at the message. The Velhari were offering to negotiate. They wanted to discuss terms. They were ready to admit that perhaps they had been too aggressive in their expansion. "They think we're going to stop," he said quietly. "They think this is the part where we sit down and talk about peace." "That is the traditional approach, sir." Daniel shook his head. "We're not following tradition." He returned to his command chair and addressed the fleet. "All ships, commence orbital bombardment. Target list Alpha. Military installations, communication networks, power generation facilities, transportation hubs." He paused. "Destroy their ability to fight. Destroy their ability to coordinate. Destroy their ability to function as a civilization." The Velhari homeworld had never been attacked. For 10,000 years, it had been the seat of a mighty empire, protected by fleets and fortresses that no enemy could breach. The people who lived there had grown comfortable in their safety. They had never imagined that war would come to their cities, their homes, their families. They learned otherwise that day. The human ships opened fire with weapons the galaxy had never seen. Kinetic bombardment rods, simple pieces of metal accelerated to enormous speeds, fell from orbit like artificial Mateo. RS. They struck with the force of nuclear weapons, but left no radiation behind. Power plants exploded. Communication towers collapsed. Highways and railways were reduced to craters in a single hour. The Velhari lost more infrastructure than they had lost in their entire 10,000-year history. And the humans were just getting started. On the ground, human marine units advanced through the chaos. They moved with a speed and precision that left the Velhari defenders helpless. There were no battle lines, no clear fronts, no safe zones. The humans attacked from every direction at once, using tactics that made no sense according to galactic military doctrine. Sergeant Kevin Mills led his squad through what had once been a government district. The buildings around them were burning, damaged by the orbital strikes. Velhari civilians ran through the streets, screaming in terror. Velhari soldiers tried to organize resistance, but every time they formed a defensive position, the humans found a way around it. "They keep trying to surrender," Private Sandra Hughes said, her voice flat with exhaustion. She had been fighting for 18 hours straight. They all had. Kevin looked at the Velhari prisoner being held at gunpoint by 2 of his soldiers. The alien was trembling, its scales pale with fear. In galactic warfare, surrendering enemies were treated with respect. They were given medical care, proper food, comfortable accommodations. Wars were fought between soldiers, not civilizations. But this wasn't galactic warfare. "Process them and move on," Kevin ordered. "We have a timetable to keep." The Velhari prisoner was led away. Kevin's squad continued their advance. Behind them, smoke rose from 1,000 fires. 6 weeks later, it was over. The Velhari Dominion, which had ruled 40 star systems and terrorized its neighbors for millennia, ceased to exist. Its military had been annihilated. Its government had collapsed. Its population was under human occupation. Waiting to learn what their conquerors would do next, the galaxy watched in stunned horror. They had never seen anything like this. Wars were supposed to take decades, sometimes centuries. They were supposed to follow rules. They were supposed to end with negotiations and treaties and carefully arranged compromises. The humans had done none of those things. They had simply attacked, with a ferocity and efficiency that defied comprehension. And they had not stopped until their enemy was completely destroyed. Admiral Daniel Price stood on the bridge of the Resolute, looking down at the conquered planet below. He felt no satisfaction in what he had done, no pride in the destruction he had caused. He had simply done what was necessary, what his species had always been capable of doing. "Sir," Lisa Warren said quietly, "the Galactic Assembly has requested an emergency meeting. They want to know what our intentions are." Daniel turned away from the viewport. "Tell them we'll be there soon. Humanity has a message for the galaxy." The Galactic Assembly Chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from 300 species sat in their designated sections, watching holographic displays that showed the aftermath of humanity's war against the Velhari. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The images on the screens were too horrifying for words. Ambassador Ithrel of the Consortium of United Worlds was the first to break the silence. He rose from his seat on 4 trembling legs, his voice shaking as he addressed the assembly. "This is an atrocity," he said. "What the humans have done violates every principle of civilized warfare. They struck without warning. They attacked civilian infrastructure. They used weapons that are banned under galactic law. They showed no mercy to surrendering enemies." He gestured at the screens, where images of burning cities and devastated landscapes continued to play. The Valhari Dominion was a great civilization. It had existed for 10,000 years. In 6 weeks, the humans have reduced it to rubble. This cannot be allowed to stand. There must be consequences. A murmur of agreement ran through the assembly. Several species called out their support for Yethrol's words. The humans had broken the rules. The humans had to be punished. But then another voice spoke, and the chamber fell silent again. "And how exactly do you propose to punish them?" The question came from Ambassador Crixtal of the Outer Rim Alliance. He was a small creature, covered in gray fur, with large eyes that had seen too much in his long life. His species had fought wars against the Valhari centuries ago. They had lost badly. "The humans just destroyed the 3rd largest military power in the galaxy," Crixtal continued. "They did it in 6 weeks. They did it without losing a single major ship. And now you want to threaten them with consequences?" Ambassador Yethrol drew himself up to his full height. "The consortium's fleet is larger than what the humans possess. If we unite against them, ... double quotes, then they will destroy us too." The new voice belonged to Ambassador Silveray of the Mindful Collective. She was old, impossibly old. Her species one of the first to achieve interstellar travel. She had watched civilizations rise and fall over thousands of years. She had seen things that most beings could not imagine. Now she rose slowly from her seat and moved toward the central speaking platform. The assembly waited in respectful silence as she took her place. "I have studied the humans since they first emerged into space," Silvera began. "My people have observed hundreds of species join the galactic community. We have seen aggressive ones and peaceful ones, primitive ones and advanced ones. But we have never seen anything quite like humanity." She turned to face the holographic displays, studying the images of destruction with her ancient eyes. "When we first learned of human history, we were horrified. No species in the galaxy has such a bloody past. Their wars killed hundreds of millions of their own kind. They developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, and they came close to using them. We assumed that contact with civilized species would teach them better ways. We assumed they had evolved beyond their violent nature." She turned back to face the assembly. "We were fools." The chamber stirred uneasily. Ambassador Yethrol tried to interrupt, but Silvera silenced him with a look. "The humans did not change," she continued. "They simply learned to hide what they were. For nearly a century, they smiled at us. They cooperated with us. They followed our rules and respected our traditions. They let us believe they were harmless." Her voice grew heavy with sorrow. "But underneath that pleasant mask, they remained exactly what they had always been. They are predators, born on a world where every living thing fights to survive. Their entire evolutionary history shaped them into perfect killers. They did not rise to dominance on their planet through intelligence alone. They rose through violence. Through war, through the systematic destruction of everything that stood in their way." She gestured at the screens. "What you see here is not an aberration. This is what humans truly are. The courtesy they showed us was the aberration. It was a choice they made, a mask they wore, because they hoped they would never have to reveal the truth." Ambassador Yethrol found his voice again. "Then we must unite against them. If they are as dangerous as you say, we cannot allow them to exist. Every species in the galaxy must join together and destroy them before they destroy us." Silvera shook her head slowly. "Still do not understand. Look at what they did to the Valhari. Look at how quickly they struck, how completely they destroyed their enemy. The humans were holding back. Even now, they are holding back. The weapons they used against the Valhari were not their most terrible weapons. They have things hidden in their arsenal that would make this destruction look gentle by comparison." She paused, letting her words sink in. "If we declare war on humanity, They will not fight us the way they fought the Velhari. They will fight us the way they once fought each other. And they will not stop until every species that opposed them is extinct. The chamber was absolutely silent. 300 species sat in their seats, contemplating the end of everything they had built over thousands of years. So what do we do? The question came from a small delegation near the back of the chamber. Their speaker was young, frightened, barely able to form the words. If we cannot fight them, what can we do? Silvira looked at the young delegate with something like pity. We hope, she said. We hope, At the humans meant what they said. They told us that their courtesy was a choice. They told us that they preferred peace. Perhaps that is still true. Perhaps, if we give them no reason to attack, they will put their mask back on and pretend to be civilized again. She began walking back toward her seat. But we should never forget what we learned today. We should never again mistake human kindness for weakness. And we should pray to whatever gods we believe in. That humanity never decides that courtesy is no longer worth the effort. Ambassador Yethril tried to speak again, to call for action, to demand that something be done. But his words died in his throat. He looked around the chamber at his fellow representatives and saw the same terrible understanding in all their eyes. They had invited wolves into their garden. They had fed them, made friends with them, convinced themselves that the wolves were no different from the sheep. And now the wolves had shown their true nature. There was nothing to be done, except wait and hope that the wolves were satisfied with what they had already taken. The holographic displays continued, to show images of the fallen Velhari Dominion. Somewhere in the galaxy, human ships were preparing to attend the emergency session of the Galactic Assembly. They were coming to deliver a message. And 300 species waited in terror to hear what that message would be. The human delegation arrived at the Galactic Assembly. 3 days after the fall of the Velhari Dominion, their ships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, moving with the precision of predators who had no need to fear anything in the darkness around them. Secretary General Marcus Webb walked through the corridors of the assembly station with Admiral Daniel Price at his side. Behind them came a small honor guard, their uniforms crisp, their faces expressionless. The aliens they passed pressed themselves against the walls, averting their eyes. Trying not to draw attention, nobody made jokes about letters anymore. The assembly chamber was packed when Marcus took his place at the central podium. Every species in the galaxy wanted to hear what humanity would say. Every species wanted to know if they would be next. Marcus looked out at the gathered representatives. He saw fear in their eyes. Raw, primal terror that stripped away all pretense of civilization. Good fear would keep them alive. I want to begin by acknowledging something, Marcus said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. What humanity has done over the past 6 weeks has shocked the galaxy. We have violated every tradition of civilized warfare. We have used weapons that your laws forbid. We have shown a side of ourselves that we hoped would remain hidden forever. He paused, letting the translation systems carry his words to every corner of the chamber. I will not apologize for what we have done. The Velhari Dominion killed 14,000 human beings. They attacked our colonies, destroyed our stations, murdered our people, and they laughed about it. They thought we were weak. They thought we would never fight back. His voice hardened. They were wrong. Admiral Daniel Price stood silently behind the Secretary General, his hands clasped behind his back. He had commanded the forces that destroyed the Velhari. He had given the orders that killed millions. He felt no guilt about what he had done. The Velhari had made their choice. They had chosen to prey upon what they thought was a weak species. They had learned otherwise. Marcus continued speaking. I understand that many of you are afraid. You have seen what we are capable of, and you wonder if you will be our next target. Let me put your minds at ease. Humanity does not seek conquest. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want war. He leaned forward, his eyes sweeping across the assembly. But understand this. We will never again allow our kindness to be mistaken for weakness. The courtesy we showed the galaxy for 93 years was a choice. We chose to be patient. We chose to be diplomatic. We chose to follow your rules and respect your traditions. We did this because we remembered what we truly were, and we hoped that peace would make our true nature unnecessary. He straightened up. The Valhari forced us to reveal ourselves. They pushed us until we had no choice but to push back. And now that the mask has fallen, it cannot be put back on. The galaxy knows what humanity is. There is no point in pretending otherwise. Ambassador Yethril of the Consortium rose from his seat. His voice was trembling, but he forced himself to speak. What guarantee do we have that you will not attack us? What assurance can you give that what happened to the Valhari will not happen to our worlds? Marcus looked at the ambassador with something that might have been sympathy. The only guarantee I can give you is this. We will treat you exactly as you treat us. Show us respect, and we will respect you in return. Trade with us fairly, and we will be fair trading partners. Leave our people alone, and your people will have nothing to fear from us. His voice dropped to something barely above a whisper, but every being in the chamber heard him clearly. But harm one human being. Attack one human colony. Kill one human child. And we will do to you what we did to the Valhari. We will not stop with your military. We will not stop with your government. We will not stop until your entire civilization exists only in history books, a warning to others who might make the same mistake. The chamber was silent. 300 species sat in their seats, barely breathing. Marcus Webb looked at them for a long moment. Then his expression softened, just slightly. I know this is not the message you wanted to hear. I know you hoped that humanity would return to being the polite, harmless newcomers you thought we were. But we cannot go back. What has been seen cannot be unseen. What has been done cannot be undone. He turned to look at Admiral Daniel Price, then back at the assembly. We are what we are. We are the species that conquered our own planet through violence. We are the species that developed weapons capable of destroying worlds. We are the species that turned the art of killing into a science. For almost a century, we hid this truth from you. We let you believe you were dealing with a young, naive species that could be pushed around without consequence. He smiled then, and it was not a pleasant expression. Now you know better. He gathered his notes and prepared to leave the podium. We will remain part of the Galactic Concord. We will continue to participate in trade and diplomacy. We will even continue to be courteous, because that is our preference. But never again will we allow courtesy to become weakness. Never again will we sacrifice our people on the altar of politeness. He turned to walk away, then stopped and looked back over his shoulder. One final thought for you to consider. The weapons we used against the Valhari were not our most powerful weapons. They were not even close. We have things in our arsenal that would make what you have seen look like a minor skirmish. We have been preparing for a true war since the day we first left Earth. We hoped we would never need what we built. His eyes found Ambassador Yethril in the crowd. Make sure we never need it. Make sure no one in this galaxy ever gives us a reason to unleash our full capabilities. Because if that day ever comes, it will be the last day for whoever stands against us. He walked out of the chamber without another word. Admiral Daniel Price and the honor guard followed him. The doors closed behind them with a soft click. The Galactic Assembly sat in silence for a very long time. Nobody knew what to say. Nobody knew how to process what they had just heard. The galaxy had changed in 6 weeks. Everything they thought they knew about the balance of power, about the rules of civilization, about the nature of the species they shared the stars with, had been proven wrong. Humanity had never been weak. Humanity had never been primitive. Humanity had simply been polite, and now their politeness had run out. In the days that followed, a strange new order settled over the galaxy. Human ships traveled freely through space, and no one challenged them. Human colonies expanded without protest. Human merchants found that negotiations went much more smoothly than they used to. The other species watched the humans with wary eyes. They smiled when the humans smiled. They nodded when the humans spoke. They agreed to whatever the humans suggested. They remembered the Valhari. They remembered what happened to those who pushed humanity too far. They remembered what they had learned about the wolves in their garden, and they were very, very careful never to give the wolves a reason to bare their teeth again. The age of humanity had begun. The galaxy would never be the same.